Hello, everybody, and welcome to week number 5 of the Cover 4 podcast. I'm Jim Trickett, along with the man with the crimson colored glasses, Randy Gibson, and it's his favorite week. It's OU Texas week.
Absolutely, Jim. I have got the crimson colored glasses shined up and ready to go, and all eyes in the college football world are going to be in Dallas, Texas this weekend, along with ESPN Game Day down there as well. Let's watch the 5-0 Sooners take on the 5-0 Longhorns. Big question, Jim, is Texas back? If they pull out a win this weekend, I think you can say they're back.
Yeah, and I think you can say that if they beat the Sooners, they would be absolutely no question they would be back. Just some
Jim,
notes that I got from the Texas Sports Information staff. 22nd time Game Day will be at the Cotton Bowl for the 119th edition of the OU Texas game. And this is the 95th time that the game is being played at the Cotton Bowl.
I believe it. It's what an experience it is. As you know, Jim, back in the 80s, I was in the band, and everybody talks about the tunnel. And yes, I have gotten to march down that tunnel 5 times, and I can attest it is an experience like you would never have in your life.
Yep. You on the Pride of Oklahoma band, and Thomas Bexley, who is the son-in-law of my chiropractor, Chris Abels, is a member of alumni of the Longhorn band.
Outstanding.
Played trumpet in the Longhorn band. So he has made that march down the tunnel just like you have.
It's fantastic, Jim. Let me share one of the things that some of the other sports channels throughout in Austin and Norman and Oklahoma City and Tulsa have all done this week is share OU Texas stories. And if I can share one as a band member.
Yes.
So back in the 80s, of course, things were a little bit more rowdy, we'll say, yes, than they are today. A little bit more calm across the fairgrounds today, even though it's still an experience like someone would never experience in their life at a game. But I can remember in 1986, it was dangerous, literally dangerous for the girls in the band to be march on the outside. So the guys would be on the outside, and the girls, we'd put the girls in the center. But as a percussionist, I was on the outside, and we had a visual at that time where at times the drums would spin their sticks, their mallets, and we would literally drill a hole through the end of our mallets and put tether through it and seal it, and then wrap the tether around our fingers. But it was a visual for when we played Oklahoma and Boomer Sooner. So as I was marching along, the girls on the inside were walking along. Drums are playing their cadence because drums never stop playing. And all of a sudden, I feel that my shoulder got yanked out of place. And I'm yanked out of line. And I'm sitting there holding my drums with this tether wrapped around my sticks. And my left hand is out like this. And I see a young Texas fan holding my drumstick, trying to take it out of my hand, not realizing it was intertwined with tether rope around my finger. So there was no way I was getting rid of it. And his girlfriend is standing there laughing. And then I remembered I have a stick in my right hand as well. So he wouldn't let go of it when I tugged on it. So I reared back with my right hand and whacked him right between the eyes and the bridge of the nose as hard as I could. Of course, that made him let it go. I ran back and got up in line. Drumline was yelling. Our section leader, who is now the director of the Pride of Oklahoma, was up a couple of people in front of me, looking back like, what's going on back there? GA is running up to me, what's going on? What happened? What happened? And anyway, but that's only half the story, Jim. Last year at homecoming, I was with the regular Pride. The alumni get to play with the Pride at the spring or at homecoming and at the spring game. So last year homecoming, this kid from the drum line comes up to me and goes, "Were you in the band that year that some Texas fan tried to steal the stick from someone in the drum line?" And I started laughing and I said, "Yeah," and that someone was me. And kind of told them the story. And they said, now this was just last year. Now that happened in 1986. So last year, this kid in the current Pride said, "We still tell that story every year."
I can believe that.
I guess my legacy lives on, Jim.
Yes.
That's all I can say about that.
Oh boy, what a story. Just to give you some info, first time since 2011 that both teams are undefeated.
I knew it had been a long time, and I thought 2011 was the last time. Sure enough. Yep.
First time that Texas enters the ball game at 5-0 since 2009. Texas leads the series 63, 50, and 5, which we used to have ties back then. 101st time it's in Dallas. It's been played at Fair Park since 1929. That's before the Cotton Bowl was built.
Wow.
And then 52nd time that Texas has entered the game unbeaten against OU. They are 34-16-1. We remember the one because that was the torrential rainstorm.
Torrential rain. The Keith Stanberry interception that apparently wasn't, according to the referees. Yep. Yes. Mm-hmm. Remember that game well.
And the sad part of it is for OU fans, Texas has won 3 of the last 4.
They have. Something that we talked about last week got confirmed earlier. I don't know if you've heard this yet or not. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey will be in attendance for sure. And I just found this out. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark will not.
Yeah.
So
I can see that because it's the last Big 12 game of OU Texas.
It is. So, and as far as the commissioners are concerned, the baton is already being passed, and it's been passed. SEC will be there represented. Big 12 head office not going to be in attendance.
Which is kind of odd that the Big 12 office is in Dallas.
It is. It just kind of makes you wonder, there's still some kind of bad feelings there, I think.
I think so. And that would be one I may need to talk to my bud, who was the former public relations director for the Big 12, Bo Carter, and bounce that off of his head.
Mm-hmm. And be interesting to see the response.
Yeah, get his response to it.
Getting into the nuts and bolts of the game itself, both teams are looking up. If you remember, even a week or two ago on the podcast, I said I looked for the game to be a 3 or 4 point game. Texas favored by 6. Mm-hmm. It's gone up a little bit already. Started out at 1.5. And then it jumped up to 3, and now it's at 6, according to the odds as of Tuesday. Oklahoma is completely healthy, from what I'm understanding. They're going to have everybody in, unlike last year when they had a couple of players out, including Dylan Gabriel, where we had no backup quarterback. And Texas, they got a cornerback and they're tied in. They're tied in. That's really good. Ankle problems. They're being considered day by day, I look for them to be able to play come Saturday. I don't think you're going to keep those guys out of that game.
No, I don't think Sark will keep any of his guys out. That, if they're needed, they're going to play.
Yeah.
They beat Kansas at home 40-14. Saw a clip of the big run that they had right up the middle, and my broadcasting friend Craig Way called it right up the middle, and then he was probably 30 yards from the goal line. There was not a white shirted Kansas Jayhawk close to him. And Craig says, "You can say good night to it." And he went all the way in for the touchdown. And so it'll be a very interesting ball game. ABC, which that means game will be on Channel 8 Saturday at 11 o'clock. The A team's going to be there. Chris Fowler, Kirk Hermstreet, Holly Rowe will be on the sideline. They'll be the crew doing that game. Of course, OU with Toby Rowland, former Fort Gibson Tiger Teddy Lehman is doing the color now since Murph Johnson has retired. And then Gabe Eichert and a guy who I know very well, former guy up at 1430 The Buzz up in Tulsa, Chris Plank, he now works for OU. Those will be the two guys on the sideline. And of course, around here, you can listen to the game on 97.5 KMOD. That's the best station to listen to OU. They've been the flagship. Well, they're not the flagship station, but they are the station in Tulsa that has for years done OU, and they are going to do it again, and probably for years to come. It have to be a major change in the operation of KMOD, which is iHeartRadio up in Tulsa. They're part of the iHeart family up there. Texas, of course, like I said, Craig Way, who will do the play-by-play on the Longhorn Network, along with his partner, Roger Wallace, and Will Matthews will be on the sideline. And if you want to listen to them, well, very simply, put it on the Varsity Sports app on your phone, and you can listen to either one of them on the Varsity Sports app. And also the game will be on Sirius XM, probably be on one of the two Big 12 stations on Sirius XM. That'll be either 199 or 200. And if it's not there, just kind of get around the channel 82 and work your way down. And it might be on one of the national stations for Sirius XM on Saturday.
So, lots of places to listen, and it's great. Getting down to some of the X's and O's of the game, of course, this is one of those games where we say it every year. It really doesn't matter. Throw out the records.
Right.
Because you just never really know. People are saying, people are from the very beginning of the season, some have picked Texas to be in the playoff. Joel Platt from Fox, he said that just outside Oklahoma's, he looks at them as a national title contender. He thinks that they'll be in that mix somewhere come December in the talk. But as far as this particular game, it's really going to be interesting. I just want to talk about the quarterbacks. OU's Dillon Gabriel. He's completed 75% of his pass attempts this year. That's number 5 in the nation. Efficiency rating of 189.37, 6th best among FBS quarterbacks. Texas quarterback Ewers, 66%. He's 36 nationally, ranks 22nd in pass efficiency with a score of 164.7. Gabriel, 15 touchdowns. Ewers, 10. But Texas has that big star in the win column called Alabama. And
Yes.
Oklahoma doesn't have that yet. The best they've got is Cincinnati.
It's a big win for Texas when you say not only do you beat Alabama, you beat Alabama at Bryant Denny.
Yeah.
That's a huge feather in Sark's cap. Like I say, the running back is good. You look at last year, I think you got to throw that game out because you and I both can say it. Yeah, OU went down there. They went to a gunfight with a cap gun because
sure
Gabriel, even though he warmed up, I think it was for show because when they came out, he was in street clothes.
Mm-hmm. He was. There was no way he was going to be able to play in that game.
No.
He's playing with a lot more confidence this year. He's got an arsenal of receivers. At the game, I was at the game versus Iowa State last weekend. I think he threw to 7 different receivers.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a fantastic receiving core. As far as depth, I would give the advantage to that to OU. Texas has the one really good receiver, but that's it. As far as pure depth, I think that would go back to the Sooners. So you kind of got that going on. In the trenches, the defensive and offensive lines, I would give the edge to Texas. Even with my crimson color glasses on, I think I would have to give the edge to Texas on the linebacking core. I would give the edge to the Sooners without a doubt, with Stutzman and Kanik. Running backs, Oklahoma hasn't shown much of a run game this year, and
they really haven't. That's very surprising that the run game for OU, it's a lot like my Hogs over in Fayetteville. They've struggled, which it did not help that Rocket Sanders has been out for 3 ball games for Arkansas. Finally came back this last week against A&M, but I agree with you. The run game, I'm not sure why OU's run game is not clicking. Is it the blocking schemes where they're run pass option and it's more of a passing game than a running game? That I don't know. But they're going to have to open it up with the run game against Texas. If they don't, Sark and them are going to pin their ears back and go after Gabriel.
They will. And with that good Texas defensive line, you know, I said it a couple of weeks ago when we played Cincinnati, that was going to be the second best defensive line that we saw. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the Texas defensive line, that's where their depth is. They've I would say all 5 of the guys up front on the defense and their backups, they're all good. Cincinnati, I think, had a better individual player than any one of the Texas ones. And with the Corleone kid, I think he's an NFL draft pick, and I think he could go first round. Texas, I think, has a whole slew of second rounders on their defensive line. And I just think that OU's offensive line is really going to have to kick it in gear if they want to protect Gabriel, or Gabriel's going to have to get that ball out fast. He's going to have to make a quick decision to either give it to the running back and try to sneak something on the outside, or he's going to have to release it fast.
Yeah. If they bring heat, we're going to find out about Dylan Gabriel, how he can handle getting pressured by the not only the line, but don't be surprised that Texas may try to blitz a little bit too with the linebackers.
I'm sure they will. Gabriel's been really good on interceptions this year. I do look for him to throw a pick or two. Honestly, it would not surprise me. We just have to hope that it's down on the Texas end of the field and give the defense a chance to hold.
Don't give Texas a short field.
No,
that's going to be the big thing. Is that
it's going to be huge.
If OU gives them a short field, especially early,
Mm-hmm.
then the floodgates could open up just like it did last year. And
One thing
that's
that
something
I
that
one thing
OU
I have
can't handle.
noticed about Oklahoma, their defense for the past several years, all through the Lincoln Riley years, was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
We all know it, and we all knew it at the time. And last year, a lot of the players, it seemed like Coach V's defensive schemes are so complicated. Last year, a lot of the players looked
Mm-hmm.
confused at times, all throughout the season.
Yes.
And this year, it seems like they're having a better grasp of it. And one thing I noticed, and it really came across Saturday night against Iowa State, Iowa State was having some success when the defense was playing zone. They were having some success in the passing. And, a lot of us were sitting there watching that game going, oh boy, is this Oklahoma secondary, has it been exposed now? Is it back to what it was? After the 9-minute mark of the second quarter, Iowa State no longer scored. They went from having nearly 200 yards in the first quarter and a half to being held to under 60 yards, I think, the rest of the game
Yeah.
as far as runs. And so they're able to make adjustments now, which is what they did Saturday. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be a key come the Texas game as well.
The biggest thing, and you can attest this with me, the biggest problem with OU has been the last several years, the Achilles heel, and I've said this for years, has been the back end,
Mm-hmm.
The secondary. And you've got a guy like Ewers who can throw the ball very, very well. And if he goes down, people better get worried, because I know who that backup is. His name's Arch Manning.
Yeah, he's got a pretty famous last name, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. And if he gets a chance, and he hadn't been out there yet, he may be sitting back similar to the freshman quarterback that's at Oklahoma State. They might be, both Mike Gundy and Steve Sarkisian may be saying, we want to keep these guys back and possibly even redshirt them to let them have another year of eligibility and learn the system.
Heard that. I have heard that being mentioned for sure.
Yep.
And it's going to be really interesting. And I think Ewers will play good. I hope Stutzman and Cannett can kind of throw him off a little bit. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Peyton Bowen could get a rush in. Some of the edge guys, if Ethan Downs could get back there and have a couple of sacks and kind of shake him up a little bit. But what do you think if that happens? Just throwing an if out there. If that happens, do you think we'd see a situation that we saw in Oklahoma a couple of years ago when Rattler got pulled and a guy named Caleb Williams went in?
Maybe. I don't know if Sark would have that quick trigger or not. He might, but just have to wait and see. That's going to be the big thing.
I think
it's possible. It's possible.
I think it's going to be a fantastic game. I think it's going to come down right to the finish. And with my crimson color glasses, I'm going to say it could go either way.
Yeah, I think it could go too, but I'm going to be Dalton, the guy who is with Tim Smithson, who has a podcast. Tim's his dad went to school with me down at Warner. He has a podcast down there at Warner called the Cover 2 Podcast. I'll give them a plug. And Tim is a big OU fan like you are, and Dalt is he's from Texas. He went down to Austin a couple of weeks ago, watched them at DKR, and I'll have to be him on this ball game, mainly because you remember the old Sooner Talk column back whenever I was sports editor of the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
written by a guy. His pen name was Biff McCool.
I do.
Remember that?
I do
Had
remember Biff
the
McCool. Yep.
yep. They wore the old super stripe cap had OU on it.
I remember that.
You remember those caps back in the day?
I do remember, absolutely.
Well, the Biff McCool is none other than Bill Looney, is who it is.
Oh,
And I I had to clean up his column several times and edit it and make sure that it was uh, suitable for printing back in the 80s. But and I will pull for Texas because of my friend down there, Craig Way.
sure.
Craig, here is the reason why I pull for Texas. This game will be the 7th anniversary of Craig losing his wife, Lori, the morning of the OU Texas game.
I remember that. I remember that happening.
Lori, she worked for the Dallas Morning News. She worked in advertising, and she succumbed to a 5-year battle with esophageal cancer. And Craig did not work that ball game. I don't think he would have worked the ball game anyway because she had gotten so bad. I think she was probably in hospice at that time there in Austin. And she passed away in her sleep Saturday morning. And Craig was in Austin. Roger Wallace, who was the color man and still is the color analyst for the Longhorn Network, slid into the play-by-play chair. Quan Cosby, you may remember that name, cornerback for the Longhorns. He was doing the sideline reporting. They brought him up to the booth. And I'm thinking Will Matthews, who is now the sideline reporter for him, was doing the sideline. I was doing Sequoia at that time. I was broadcasting their ball games. And I had no idea that this was happening down there. And I told Craig in March, he was broadcasting for Westwood One at the NCAA basketball tournament in Tulsa. It was a year that Texas, their basketball team was injured back when Shaka Smart was their coach. He got a call from Westwood One, and they said, "I don't think you guys are going to make the playoffs, make the tournament." He said, "No, there's no way we're going to." And then they said, "We've been wanting for a long time for you to broadcast the NCAA tournament for us." And he says, "Where do you want to send me?" He said, "Tulsa." And he says, "I would love it." And he called the tournament with former Thunder basketball coach PJ Carlissimo. That was his broadcast partner.
Oh, wow.
For the tournament. Then he was doing the games there, and they switched the game times on Sunday. Well, they had already given him his airline flight. And he came up to me on Sunday and he says, "Jim, I need a favor." I said, "What do you need, partner?" He said, "After the game's over with, can you run me to the airport? Because I'm going to have to rent a car." He still is an Emerald card holder with Enterprise. He was going to do a one-way from Tulsa to Dallas, stay all night in Dallas, and then take the car from Dallas and go all the way back to Austin. Well, when the game was over with, okay, I told him where I was at. I was the locker room steward for Southern Cal that night. and started looking around, and said, "Where in the hell is Craig at?" And he, I walk out where they were picking up they were breaking down the broadcast stuff for Westwood One. And I asked him, I said, "Where's Craig at?" And he said, "Are you Jim?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, our producer, he could take him out there." I said, "Okay, just as long as he's not here and he's still looking for me." So
Hmm.
the producer uh, took Craig out to the airport, and then he drove, like I say, to Dallas, spent the night, because on Friday nights, whenever they're home or they've got a game in Texas, he does the Friday night high school scoreboard for Valley Sports Southwest. And so they put him up there in Dallas after the show's over, because it's from midnight to 1 a.m.
Hmm.
when they do the show, and it's live. And so they put him up at night in Dallas, and then he goes either back to Austin or wherever they're playing at, and broadcast the ball game. The only time he's not there is that if Texas is, say, uh, at West Virginia or
Hmm.
some other locale that
Far away.
there's no way he's going to be able to get from Dallas to where the ball game's at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my reason why I will root for him, and he'll, if they win, he can celebrate with one of those Fletcher's corn dogs after the ball game. And he has the best thing is that last summer Craig got remarried, and her name is Linda, and she's got to be a great lady. And I looked at the Arkansas schedule next year. Arkansas plays Texas at Fayetteville next year, and keep my fingers crossed that I get that game with ESPN, and hopefully she's there, and hopefully I get to meet her, and I'll tell her, you know, you have married a great guy, and he is a great guy, and
That's great.
hopefully one day, hopefully you can work a game over there, and you
Hope
can get to
so.
meet him, hopefully.
That would be fun. You know,
Yeah.
I love OU Texas. It's fun. It's fun to poke fun at my Texas friends, and I
Yes.
have a lot of them. I've
Yes,
had
you
a lot of
do.
them for years. We have great fun. We laugh at each other about it. Um, I will say this, and I'm sticking. I said it early in the season, and I'm sticking to it. Um, whoever comes out the victor on Saturday is going to have to defend it, because the loser's going to get a shot at a rematch come December. I
Yeah,
still think
it's
that's going to
very,
happen.
very possible. Very possible. Also, one other thing, you talk about the bands at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Both bands march out together. Is that correct?
They've started doing that. At used to, when I was around, the winning band got to lead 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but we left right behind one another. But, you know, we love to poke fun at each other even back then, but we got, as far as band members, we always got along great.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
Texas, so Barry Switzer was always very good to us. He wanted us there. He would pay for us to be there. He made sure we were there. We went down on Friday nights, Friday afternoon, played in a high school football game in the Dallas area, went and played at alumni events in the city, and then we
Mm-hmm.
did our own thing. I can remember visiting with Texas band members and them saying, "I can't believe you guys get to come down on Friday night. We had to leave this morning, early." And
Interesting.
so they made a day trip out of it. We made a weekend out of it.
Yes.
But I've been down on their invite to events in Austin on their campus. We've they've been up to our campus in Norman and our events, and we always got along really well. There
Mm-hmm.
was never any problems between the two bands,
Yeah.
even though we would poke fun at each other. You know, I could tell you stories of things we would do to each other, but that would just take up more time. But and it was the same way with OSU. The two bands always got along very well together.
Mm-hmm. Speaking
And
about
with Brian,
OSU,
with Brian Britt as the director, he is very much as director of the Pride. He is very much into that now,
mm-hmm.
and um, the bands always do things together.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, turn the page to Oklahoma State. They get a Friday night game as they were off last week. They get the Kansas State Wildcats, 6:30 on ESPN. I think they found a quarterback, even though they lost to Iowa State in Ames. But I don't know a whole lot about K-State. They I think they're around 500 right now, and coming to Stillwater, it's a Friday night game. You lose a day of practice.
You do.
And also you have that mandatory day off that you have to have. So you lose a practice. K-State probably will be in somewhere close to Stillwater, probably stay in Tulsa, I would guess, Thursday night, and then drive over to Stillwater on Friday. So it'll be an interesting ball game. That, like I say, it'll be on ESPN. Then Tulsa, they got a big win last week at home, and they have to travel to Boca Raton, Florida. They got to take on Florida Atlantic on Saturday afternoon. Well, it's a 5 o'clock game, so it's 6 o'clock down there. And TU now 3-2 on the year, and 1-0 in the American. That helped them beating Temple. Here's an oddity in the schedule. Last week's opponent, this week's opponent, and next week's is Rice. All three teams' nickname are the Owls.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Temple Owls, Florida Atlantic Owls, and the Rice Owls. Yeah, try that one on for size. As far as having three matching nicknames 3 weeks in a row.
Wow. Now, what's been the record?
I think that is the record of three nicknames in a row being the same thing. It's Bruce Howard having to, him and Rick Corey and Jeremy Poplin, they're not going to have to worry about changing the nickname last week, this week, and next week.
Not at all.
Now you can hear that game on their flagship station is 99.5 The Bull. It's a part of the old KVOO family, now owned by Griffin Communications out of Muskogee. You know, the Griffin family with Griffin's Foods. They own Channel 6. They own the old KVOO, which is now KFAQ, which is where Jinx is at on Friday nights. And then the FM 99.5, it's a country station, but they do, they're the flagship station for the University of Tulsa. So, and then my Hogs have going through the gauntlet, as I say. They're 0-2 right now. They've got to go to the Grove this week and face Ole Miss. That was a wild one Saturday night against LSU. In fact, they
oh my gosh,
that was unreal. I got to watch the last quarter of it because I was over in Rogers for the Walmart Northwest Arkansas Championship. That's the LPGA tournament that is played at Pinnacle Country Club, and I got to work in the scoring tent for 3 days. So I got to meet all the girls that played in the tournament. And I got to watch that one, and the students and the fans stormed the field. That's an automatic, at least $100,000 fine from the Southeastern Conference.
Oh, really? When the
Yes.
fans stormed the field?
Yeah. You remember when the fans stormed the field at Arkansas 2 years ago?
I do. Yep.
That cost, and Hunter Yurchek, he told the one of the state troopers that was doing security, said, let them come. Just make sure nobody gets hurt. Make sure Texas, their guys get off the field. Make sure everybody's safe. But I know we're going to get fined. He knew it, and that was $100,000. When they stormed the court against Auburn, when I was there, we had the Arkansas University of Arkansas Police Department, along with members of the Washington County Sheriff's Office, standing behind us. I had a rope coming over my shoulder to kind of halfway protect us, but B, give the Auburn players a chance to get to the locker room, because their locker room is behind our broadcast table, along with the referees.
Jeez.
And the 3 referees, 2 of them were standing in front of us, KB Burdett and Joe, and I can't think of his last name. He was the R. KB was the U1. Well, the U2 was none other than Teddy Valentine. Teddy was already back in the locker room. And I looked over my shoulder, saw the coast was clear, raised the rope up, looked at KB, does this, I do this number to him, and he taps Joe on the shoulder. He said, "Hey, we got a chance to get out of here." And he said, "Okay." Hey, he hollered at me. He said, both of them said, "Hey, Jim, thanks." I said, "No problem. Yeah, I'm back there."
Get away, get out.
Yeah, get out. That
Absolutely.
cost him $250,000 for that one. If there'd been a third one, it was $500,000.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah. But Arkansas goes down there to Ole Miss Saturday night. That's a 6:30 ball game. That one goes on the SEC network. That's 6:11 on DirecTV. A guy who I've worked with in basketball, Tom Hart, he will be the play-by-play guy, along with Cole Kubik, and Alyssa Lang will be on the sideline. And then, of course,
talking about fines for the SEC. I was kind of starting to wonder, and I kind of wanted to get your input on this one real quick. A game from last Saturday. I kind of thought Auburn's fans might be rushing the field, because they came really close to knocking off the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs. Then they came down to a late touchdown.
It was at Auburn.
It was.
They would have stormed it. There's no doubt.
We were in the broadcast booth for the OU game, and while we were waiting for kickoff, that game was the game we were watching up there. And it was incredible. When Georgia scored that late touchdown, you kind of knew that was it. Auburn had that last chance, but then they threw an interception, so that ended it. But for a while there, we were like, "Wow, are we watching something going on here?"
You were working with the Compass, right?
Yeah.
Who was doing that ball game nationally?
Greg Daniels and former Colorado Buffalo, Chad, national championship, played in the pro. He's in the Pro Bowl. Played Jennings, I think, is his last name.
Okay, all right.
Former
Buff. You were in that sardine can up on the 7th deck.
Oh man, yeah. Greg was asking me about, what has Oklahoma done as far as their stadium, and we were kind of joking, saying, "Yeah," and said, "They need to get this press box updated with going into the SEC for sure." We were in the sardine can, that little sardine can, which you and I have worked in there before together.
Mm-hmm.
There was 6 of us in there, along with all of our equipment.
Oh boy, you had the
And
engineer behind you,
yep,
along with the uh, stage manager,
yep, both behind us.
both behind you guys.
Yep,
Then you had 4 in front.
with the
You
tape,
had
the
play
desk.
by
Yep,
play, you, stat man, where I would
stat.
have been sitting, and
Yep,
then the color analyst
yep.
on the far side, which whenever you and I worked, uh, Tony Hill was the one
Tony
doing
Hill,
doing
all
color
pro.
for that
Super Bowl
OU
champ.
West Virginia game several years ago.
Yeah.
Back when
I
your daughter Wendy was attending OU at the
She
time.
was at OU at the time. Yeah, she was. Remember, I had the binoculars trying to find her in the stands across the across the way. There she was. Um, I got to talk to Chad, former Colorado Buffalo, played for Bill McCartney, national champion. Ask him what he thought about his Buffs and Coach Prime. He
Mm-hmm.
said things were exciting back in Boulder once again after many years of kind of
The
being down
Doldrums.
and nobody talking about him. He said he was glad
Yeah,
to see his Buffs back in the news. Said
yeah.
things were looking up.
Uh, you talk about Bill McCarthy. Uh, I talk about the Varsity Sports app, where you
Mm-hmm.
can listen to college games across the country. I can pick them up on that app.
Really,
Mark Johnson and Bill McCartney is the color man for
really,
the Colorado Buffalo Network.
wow! I did not
So
realize
he
that.
is still involved with CU football.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
I invite people to put that on their phones and hop around and listen to different guys. That's what I do, because I miss doing the ball games. I haven't done a game in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I did it was basketball at Northeastern. I was going to call the game, and then Dave Riggert, who was the play-by-play man that time at Missouri Western, that's who we were playing, showed up because their football game at Nebraska Kearney got COVIDed out. It was
Oh
during
wow.
COVID 2 years ago, and Dave is now the play-by-play man for James Madison. He left
Hmm.
St. Joe and went to James Madison, and
Hmm.
so he's doing the Dukes games now.
I like listening to these guys. As far as Bill McCartney, I liked him as a coach. Uh,
Yeah, he was a great coach. He was a
yeah,
great coach up there.
you know, and talking about the coach, he was a good Christian man. He really tried to instill some good
Mhm.
faith build, not just faith building as far as religion, but just good actions in his players. And
Yes.
I mean, yeah, as an Oklahoma fan, he got on your nerves because that's when Colorado was kind of rising up a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
but you put all that aside and just look at the men. I mean, you got people like Lavelle Edwards, former BYU coach who's passed away
Mm-hmm.
now, but good man. Uh, Another BYU guy now, Kalani Sataki, was at Navy. Now he's at BYU. Good man.
Yes.
Hawaiian, big Hawaiian guy. Um,
No, he's
but
he's not Hawaiian. He's Samoan.
Samoan, yeah, pardon me, Samoan. Um, Great guy. Fun. Really cares about his players, and actually, Coach Prime is that way. I heard something today that really impressed me. Someone from Colorado, a Colorado student, they were talking about this on the Sports Animal. Colorado student posted something out that um, the the quarterback Sanders,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Shador.
she had a classmate. He opened the door for her to the classroom, and
Uh-huh.
apparently Dion is teaching these players manners. Apparently, all over
Exactly.
campus, these players are like opening doors for the girl students. They're polite. They're attending
Mm-hmm.
class, and he's really teaching them to be good
Good
men.
men.
Good
And he
men.
told them that. And listen to him, the rules that he sets down. I mean, no wife beaters, no
Mm-hmm.
slides. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're wearing, you know, the CU logo on that shirt, you know, dress the part. And
Mm-hmm.
you're representing the school, but you're also representing yourself. And, the question I would like to ask him is, could Coach Prime coach primetime? Could he have coached primetime?
Don't know. That would be a good question to ask him.
Yeah, it would be. It really would. Yeah.
Yeah, I, I this Colorado student, this girl that had written this thing, she was saying, it's unlike anything she'd ever seen. She said it was never like that before,
Yeah.
ever, you
Yeah.
know, and
180
she was
degree
just,
turn up there.
yeah, and he's getting surprisingly, he's kind of getting some flack about, talking about the faith and some of that stuff, which I guess in today's world is kind of taboo, but he's moving on with it. But
Oh yeah.
if it's teaching
And I
these
credit
guys to
I
be good men, I'm all for it.
yes, I am too. Well, we've talked about the big four. Now let's talk about the Redmen. Uh they played hard. It was 14-0 at half. Had a chance to be 7-7 at half, but again, turnovers, short fields, and wound up, couldn't get off the field the second half, several 3-and-outs, and it turned into a 42-7 loss to against the number 3 team in the country, the Pittsburgh State Gorillas. But
Hmm.
they didn't get blown out. I mean, that's the thing you got
No,
to say. I mean, the guys are still trying. You know, JJ's wanting, hoping he's getting maybe a couple of his offensive linemen back this week as they make the final trip up to Jefferson City, Missouri to take on the Lincoln Blue Tigers. Uh, Even though they are technically they're still an MIAA team, but they're not playing an MIAA schedule this year. Some of the teams we tried to do it, tried to find a game for them so we could play somebody else. I think the only one that could do it, that did it, was Pitt State. They were able to find somebody for them to take their place, and then they wound up playing somebody else. But
you know,
they go up
that was
there
one of the,
playing at 2 o'clock on
yeah,
Saturday up in Jefferson City.
I hope JJ and the guys can pull something together. They desperately need a win. They're working really hard. JJ has tried and he's done everything he can. He's just been hit with a string of bad luck between
Yeah,
injuries and penalties. And now last year, this game was one that they actually pulled off and won 38-10.
yeah, it was here,
So
and I was here last year. In fact,
yeah,
that I believe that was homecoming.
yeah, it was.
So
It was.
that was one of the
So
rare times that we won homecoming.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I would have to do a whole lot of digging in my desk. Uh, I've got an old NSU press guide that was made by the first sports information director at NSU, who was going to be my boss back in '78 until he decided to move and went to Texas Arlington, Jim Patterson. Now, in that press guide, it had how we did in homecoming,
Hmm.
how many wins and losses we had, and ties back then. I'd have to find it. It was probably down at the bottom of the darn thing, and like I say, I'd have to do a heck of a lot of digging to try to find it. But 2 o'clock next on this Saturday up in Jefferson City, Missouri. And then we are back home next week as soon as I pull up the
Central Missouri
schedule. And they will want to say that we play
Central Missouri.
I think it is the Mules, I believe.
Yeah.
Let me pull the schedule up. And it is the Central Missouri Mules. It is Indigenous Peoples Day on the 14th, 2 o'clock against the Mules. Then the next week at home against the Bronchos, President's Cup Day on the 21st.
Yep. The one next week on the 14th, that's a 2 o'clock afternoon game.
Right. Yep.
But then the 21st
is afternoon games.
Yep.
So
21st is a night game, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Correct that. That'll be the last night game.
Yes.
Because the rest of them will be afternoon.
Right.
Well, turn our attention to high school football. Tahlequah Tigers took one on the chin at Sand Springs.
Yeah, they did.
41-7 over the against the Sand Springs Sandites, and now come home to Gable Field, Doc Wadley Stadium, and taking on a team that surprisingly 0-2. The Booker T. Washington Hornets.
Yeah.
0-2.
That's you don't hear Booker T and and something very often, do you?
No, you don't. And that's a scary thought, because the next two are tough. Play Booker T this week, then the number one team in 6A2 next week, Muskogee Ruffers.
Yeah.
Then you play U.S. Grant at U.S. Grant. So that
Tigers having a rough year.
Injuries have hit them as well. Chris DeLoach posted last week that his son's out for the remainder of the season. One of the offensive linemen, he was on crutches, and he's going to have his knee worked on. He got hurt in practice last week, so we without him for the remainder of the season. So if we can get to 2-4, if we could get one more win, go to 3-4, it might be a better seed in the playoffs. So, man, get away from possibly having to face a number one in the second round. And maybe even host a playoff game in the first round.
Man, I'll tell you, the game Friday night, it's going to be another one that's going to be really tight, or it's going to be really important for the Tigers to pull that one off, isn't
it? Yeah. Then the Battle of Cherokee County is this week.
Keys
and Sequoia at Jerry Hood Field down in Keys. Here's something. The Indians are the only team above 500. They're 3-2.
Really?
They are 3-2. They won homecoming over Henrietta 22-12 out at Thompson Field. That's 3 wins in a row for them after starting 0-2.
After a rough start. Yeah.
Yeah. Beat Westfield, beat Okemah, and now Henrietta. So
I still say they're excited about that new turf.
I would say so. And Keys would have to see that thing, and Stephen Goss might say, we may need to float a bond issue and put it on our field. And it would be nice if they would. And they have talked about it out there.
Yeah.
Game time, 7 o'clock out at Jerry Hood Stadium out there at Keys. Then the Cougars lost to the number 10 team in 2A last week. The Prague Red Devils 56-0 at Prague. So they're 1-4 and 1-1 in the district, whereas Sequoia is 2-0 in the district. And when Sequoia wins, they win one more. They're pretty much assured a playoff berth. Then the lone team that's looking for that first win is Hulbert. They lost on the road 41-13 to Fairland in a game of teams that were looking for that first win, and Fairland got it. They'll be home against the Afton Eagles on Friday night over at Ryder Field in Hulbert, and hopefully they can get that first win of the season. Also, go back to Tahlequah. Cross-country teams ran over at the Chili Pepper over in Fayetteville on Saturday, and a girl that looks like she may get her another All-State jacket, McKenna Hood. There was 334 girls that ran that 5K over at the Chili Pepper on Saturday. She came. That's pretty good because you're running against not only girls from Oklahoma, but Arkansas and Missouri. And I wouldn't be surprised there was some from Kansas down there as well.
That's fantastic. Happy for McKenna.
Yep. And be interesting to see where she may land. She's looked at Air Force, which is Division I. Is there a possibility that she follows her mom's footsteps and goes up to Joplin and runs for Missouri Southern, one of the top Division II cross-country teams in the country, and have also hosted the national championship meet there in Joplin. And they've got a really nice cross-country track up there at Missouri Southern, right next to Fred G. Hughes Stadium, which is the home of the Lions football team. So
wouldn't blame her if she did.
I wouldn't either. Anything else we touch on before we close it out for the week?
I think we're ready for the week. They're ready next week to talk OU Texas recap, I guess.
Yeah.
See where the rest of the season takes all the teams.
Very much so. That's something we can talk about next week. The Hogs complete the gauntlet by going to Bryant-Denny and taking on Alabama. Then finally get back home in 2 weeks and take on Mississippi State. So hopefully they can. I'd like to see them get one at least. But boy, they're getting banged up. They lost Luke Hass, freshman tight end, to a broken clavicle in the first quarter. He's out for the remainder of the regular season. And Sam's just hoping if they can get bowl eligible, he could play in a bowl game. But that remains to be seen. So
it does.
Well, I think that will do it for the Cover 4 podcast for this week. And like I say, we'll review OU Texas next week, along with the games that are being played this weekend, and look at the high school games, and hopefully a couple of wins for a couple of teams. One for sure, either Keys or Sequoia, because they're playing each other. Maybe even the Tigers might send the Hornets into a tailspin and make them 0-3. That would be good.
That would be good for the Tigers for sure.
Yep. Well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Cover 4 podcast. For my partner, Randy Gibson, I'm Jim Trickett. Thanks a lot. Talk to you all later. Good night.
All right.